Welcome to the Writer Groupie Podcast. I'm Kim Smith, the writing guru, bringing you discussions, insights, and insider details on planning, producing, promoting, and profiting as a writer. This is a podcast by writers for writers. You can find out more about Writer Groupie at www.kimsmithauthor.com. And here's the next episode of Writer Groupie. Hi, Kristi!
Hi!
And welcome to Writer Groupie. It is so good to see you.
Thank you for inviting me and letting me be on here. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'm so excited about your book. I feel like it's my book because I've known you for a while and I've been with you through some of the early phases of this book. And so, you know, it's exciting. It's an exciting time for me personally, but I know it's got to be an exciting time for you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you and about this great book?
Well, it is funny because you saw this book as it was being born, really. Like the very first few chapters in our early critique groups way back when, right?
Mm-hmm.
So about me, there's nothing exciting about me. You know, the normal stuff. As I sit in my daughter's room, I'm a mom of 2 kids, and I'm an OT, which I managed to write into the book, an occupational therapist, because I wanted to give credit to my profession that never really gets any kind of recognition. But I've been a writer since I was a little kid and wrote short stories, and I love Sweet Valley High, and I always wanted to, as they would come to an end, I always wanted more about Jessica and Elizabeth, and so I would write out their little short stories, and my mom bought me a typewriter, and I would type them up and stuff, and when I was in high school, I was on the newspaper team, so I've always had that writer desire.
Fan fiction before fan fiction was popular.
Yes, oh, and now today, if I could write fan fiction, it would be on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I love them.
Oh, I know, and they're so popular too.
But they're so much fun to watch. But
They
anyway.
are. They really are. So, tell us how The Girl He Knows came to be born. What led you to write this book?
Well, by no means is it my story. But I had a long time ago gone through a divorce, and I was young when I went through divorce, and I remember thinking, wow, this is pretty, even though you have a lot of family, friends, and support, this is pretty isolating. It's something you go through alone. No matter, even if you have tons of people around you, you still go through it alone. And it's a growing moment, obviously. And then as I was going through it, I had my best friend from high school say to me, listen, you get a second chance. Don't screw it up. Do it for everybody who's stuck and won't get a second chance or doesn't take a second chance or who repeats their mistakes. And that was pretty profound for me. And so I had tried my hand at a young adult book that wasn't going very well. And I had always liked romance. I always read romance. And so I thought, well, if I had to write what I know about what it's like to be divorced, and that line spoke to me. And I was like, let's just create something from there. And that's how it was born and grew from that. And I have to say the story that's in the book now from the story that I started with are completely different. Like when I went back to rework some chapters, a lot was scrapped. A lot. But I will say this, my character stayed the same.
Well, that's good because, you know, sometimes they don't. By the end of a book, they can become a completely different person from what you started with, and sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's not.
Right. But, yeah, the girl I set out to write about, her journey, it stayed the same, and that was what was important to me.
Show us the book. You got the book handy?
I do have the book handy.
Yay! This is the book cover for The Girl He Knows. Yay!
And when I showed it to my husband, he said, can we invite her over for dinner? Will we get to meet her?
And you said, no.
I was like, this is it. Read the book. You'll meet her inside.
There you go. Okay, so, you know, I've been interviewing people and I've been talking to people for different things. And, you know, self-publishing is a very, very big part of the literary world these days.
Yes.
But you decided not to go that route. You went the traditional route and you found a publisher. And I know everybody that watches my show now, watches it because it's video now, is going to want to know how you got your publisher.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you why I went with a publisher. I needed to know the ins and outs of how publishing worked. And reading about it and people talking about it wasn't enough for me. I needed that firsthand experience. And I'm not great with grammar, and I needed an editor. And I was like, I can pay for one, or I can try through a publisher. And I can just hope that they'll like my story enough that they'll want to invest time in editing it. So I entered a contest. Susie Townsend has a Can You Handle the Truth contest.
Good title.
She did it again this year, but I entered it two summers ago. And and it was on a whim, like I had just finished the book, and it was cleaned up. In my head, it was cleaned up. In retrospect, it was still a hot mess. And I said, oh, I'm going to do it. My critique partner was like, do it, you should do it. I said, oh, I'm going to do it. And I thought, what's the chances, right? And she loved my query. And out of 660 manuscripts, she only asked for 4. And I was one of the 4. And so I was like, my query is good. And so my premise is good, right? Mm-hmm. And of course she didn't like it. I mean, she rejected it, and she should have, because what I looked at later that she read, I was like, oh, I'm embarrassed. I feel like I should write her an apology letter. But after that, I thought, okay, maybe I actually do have something here that might be worth pursuing. And if it is, I want to pursue it with the best knowledge, and doing that self-publishing at this moment is not for me. I do see a future for myself in that, but at this moment it was not for me. So I thought, probably because of fear mostly, like I thought, I'm going to start with small presses. You know, I mean, I could have queried like 1 million agents, but I don't know if I was up for that. That's a huge, huge emotional journey.
It is. It's a lot of time too.
Yes, and I was like, and there are days sometimes I think I shortchanged myself, even if I would have put out 80 queries and got 80 rejections back. I sometimes think I shortchanged myself that experience to grow from that. But nevertheless, I went through RWA Journal. I have a friend published with Crimson Romance, and so I asked her some stuff. I worked with a girl, Teresa Myers, who is with Entangled, and so I was asking her about some different small presses, and I got a list of those. And so I submit off to a bunch of those. And then I was in California for a conference for my other job, and I was still surfing, looking, and I saw Lyrical Press. And I was like, oh, all right. And so I submitted to them. And it's funny because I submitted to them, I hit send, and I went, yes, like that. And then I danced around my hotel room for a little bit and pulled out my computer to work on my next work in progress. I got an email back from them 11 days after I sent that request, and she said, we're very interested. You should know something back from us in a week or so. And then I got the call like 2 weeks after that.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I also saw at the time I hadn't seen the press release that they were bought out by Kensington. And then I was like, whoa. You know, as soon as when I got the email from her, I started looking really hard at them and all the. I mean, I'd done my research, but I really dug into it. And I realized they'd been bought out by Kensington, and now they are the digital imprint for Kensington, for all their mystery and everything. So it really worked out for me, and awesome. I got exactly what I wanted. I got an editor who pointed out a lot of things to me that I feel have affected my writing going forward.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And that's what I want. I mean, she's amazing. Like, she doesn't just say you need to fix this as a split infinitive. She's like, this is a split infinitive. This is why it doesn't work. Here's some good examples of that.
Oh, that's cool.
So she's an editor teacher, and yeah,
and we all need that, no matter what stage of writing we're at.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, so, you know, you wrote the book, you did your due diligence with edits and so forth. I'm trying to make sure I'm not too dark over here. It's just my best light. You submitted it, you were accepted, and it got published. And then you moved from being a writing author to a published author, and everything that comes after is a whole new world for most people. So I gotta ask, what are you doing to market your book?
Well, Well, I luckily Kensington has a marketing team, and so she emailed me in the beginning stages and said, "Here's a sheet. Make sure you're on Twitter. Set up your Goodread author. Set up your Amazon Central. It's Amazon author, Author Central.
Author Central, yeah.
Set that up. Think about LinkedIn. Think about Google Plus. Think about have a Facebook." And I had started setting some of that stuff up. Have a website. I had already started building that. And she gave me a list. She's like, really consider a blog tour. And at the time, I thought, blog tours were stupid. Okay. Sorry, I hate saying that. I was like, really? What impact does this have? Okay. I was like, whatever. And so she'd send me a list of people, and I liked a fair amount of them, but I was on a pretty tight budget. And some of them, the ones I liked, were over my budget. And so I started doing my other research, and I went with Jen Halligan PR I decided, okay, I'll do a blog tour. And then coincidentally, RWA came out with a magazine that said what to do for marketing, and a bunch of authors had put in like what they did. So I went through that and started just contacting different blogs, like big ones like Romance Junkies and Smexy Books, and just started contacting them about advertising, that kind of stuff. So then at the time that Kensington gave me a list of what they were going to do, and then I hired Jen, and she gave me a list of what she was going to do, and I got to pick kind of a la carte what I wanted. And reviews were important to me, so I was like, even if they're bad, I want to start getting reviews in. More than I want to do an author interview, I want reviews. And so we had our focus on that. And then I started looking at those and just fine-tuning what was filling in the niche that I needed. And I felt like I needed some advertising on different sites, that just wasn't Goodreads,
Right.
Or like a lot of people advertise on RWA, but it's like you're really preaching to the choir in RWA magazine.
That's
right?
true.
We're all romance writers. I'm like,
right.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to reach out, to find a different market, because I feel like my book is chick lit romance.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to a bunch of specific chick lit sites, and so I had my blog tour, which now in hindsight, I wish I would have done a longer one, and I wish I would have done maybe even 2 different companies.
Wow.
And I highly recommend it, but I really think you have to pick the one that works for you and that's really suited. Jen was awesome. Like, she probably approached over 100 websites for reviews and interviews and stuff like that. Yeah. And just was like, this is how many we got back who were interested. You can pick 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever. So I could really pick that and cater it to the way I wanted, which was good. And then, of course, I've taken out ads on some of the big sites. And what's interesting is, if you have your author website, you can see occasionally who clicks on an ad from Smexy Books that took you to their website that ended up going to Amazon. So I've been able to see. Yeah, I've seen some push from different things. I took an ad out on, like I said, Smexy. There was an ad on Smart Women Trashy Books, or Smart Bitches Trashy Books, sorry. Fresh Fiction, there's been some stuff. And I'm going to say the magazine wrong. It's a romance magazine, and there's so many acronyms in my life right now that I mix it up, because my husband's in the Navy, so we live our life of acronyms.
Yeah.
So I think it's BTS, Between the Sheets. BTS E-Magazine. I took out a spread with them. They have a pretty good bounce, and that's kind of what I was focusing on.
Okay. I've heard of some of these places. I've never had the privilege of using them. But good information to know. Anyone that might be listening out there that wants to do a blog tour, that's good information. You need to do your due diligence.
And I will say this, and I talked to my marketing person with Kensington, the Goodreads does an ad that it's a pay-per-click, and I got a lot of clicks, but very little traffic. Like, people would click on it to go to my author page, but I didn't see any kind of return on investment on a Goodreads ad.
Yeah.
And my publicist, my marketer person at Kensington said the same thing. Like, they used to have really good returns, but she's like, we've really seen a decline with Goodreads. So I would tell people that's something to consider, saving your money.
And I don't know if you heard or not, but Copy Blogger is pulling their Facebook page. They said that Facebook ads don't work either.
Yeah, I've heard that too, that their numbers are pretty skewed, and their what is it? Algorithm is not.
Yeah. Well, and that's completely changed even on interaction between people looking at your page. You're not hardly
Right.
getting any traffic to your author page or fan page, whatever it's called, because the algorithms have changed and you're just not going before the people who need to see you.
Right.
So I don't know. I think Facebook might be shooting themselves in the foot, but that's just my opinion.
I think a lot of people migrating over to Google Plus. And not that I have this experience, but I hear a lot of people talk about LinkedIn for writers.
Yeah. I'm hearing more and more about that.
Yeah, and I just don't have the. It's not that I don't want to do it. It's just it's on my plate. It's it's one more thing. There's a book trailer that needs to get done.
Oh yeah.
There's a short story that needs to be written. There's some children that need to be fed.
I understand. I do.
Right.
Okay, so we all of us that write, we so understand where you're coming from. But in all of us who write, there's a favorite part of being a writer. What's your favorite part of being a writer?
Writing. Nicholas Sparks says like 40% of being a writer is the writing part, and that's the best part. And I agree with him. It's hard, and sometimes you look at something you wrote and you're like, that's the stupidest thing ever, right? And then 2 paragraphs later, you're like, man, I can't believe I wrote that. I love that.
Yes.
I just finished my second book in the series, and I had a line in there where all my beta readers came back and said, this line took my breath away. And I was like, that, right there, that is why I write, right there. I'm like, that moment when I wrote that, I was like, I loved it too. And I was like, that is just like, you've said before, that's just like a high that you're like, yes, it's a euphoria. You're like, yes, it's an art that people like. And yes.
And it's really cool when you connect with another human being and they get it. Yeah. It's like you struggled for weeks over that one paragraph and they get it. And then when the reviews come in and they say, oh my goodness, and they start quoting that line, you're just like, I feel so good.
You saw it. You saw it.
Yes, I built it and you came.
Exactly. Or when they talk about your characters, like, oh, I can't believe she did this. That was so funny. Yes. And you're like, it just, it's just a warm fuzzy that you just, I haven't found anywhere else. It's different. It's a professional satisfaction that I've never experienced.
Me too. And I think that is something that everybody would agree with. For a writer, the best part is the writing.
Yeah.
But now some people do like marketing. I'm not one of them. That's why I have this podcast.
If I had a degree in marketing, I probably would like it better. But I have a degree in working with special needs people. So I'm like, that doesn't really translate over.
It's kind of far piece there.
Right. I don't know how to tap into that for marketing.
Yeah. You'll figure it out. You're doing a great job. So
thank you.
Well, listen, we're down about 3 minutes left to the show.
Okay.
And I want you to tell the listeners or viewers, whatever you guys are, what are your top 3 things that you think a new author needs to know?
That it's not easy street. It's once you finish the first book, it gets even harder. And that it really comes down to your craft, like really knowing the craft. Look at dialogue, look at telling and showing. It really comes down to a really good way of telling the story and how your voice comes out. It comes down to craft. And then I would say to any person who wants to write or new writer, you have to find beta readers who are going to stick the knife in and turn it. Because that's the only way you're going to get better. I mean, if everybody said, yeah, this was great, I didn't like this part, but this was okay, that does nothing to make you get better. They have to be able to say why they didn't like it and what it did to them and, and be able to troubleshoot some activities and ideas about how to fix that. I think that is power. That is how you are able to keep moving forward. And moving forward is just what it takes to finish a book and then go to the next one.
I agree. You got to develop that thick skin.
Oh, yeah.
You really, really do. And usually if you have more than 1 or 2 critique partners or beta readers and they all say the same thing, you better sit up and take note of it. That's very, very crucial to your, the craft.
Yeah, it's how you develop your craft.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm in a total agreement with those three things, and that's just great advice. And I really, really appreciate it because I know there's somebody out there that's going to need that. So, and listen, I am so excited to have you come on Writer Groupie, and I'm excited to hear there's another book in the series, and I'm excited because I know I can get you back on here.
And I would love to come back, and I'm excited because I know you'll beta read it.
Yes, I will, very gladly.
Thank you.
So, Kristi, it's just been fantastic talking to you this afternoon, and I do want for you to come back, and I do wish you just all the best with everything.
Thank you. I do. I turn to you every time when I have questions and need guidance, and I appreciate that. It's wonderful that you're out there, and I'm glad that we've been friends for so long. And I hope that we'll continue this friendship, and we just can project our writing careers, off the charts.
Amen. I'm for that. From your lips to God's ears.
Right? I mean, I don't know a lot of people who work as hard as us, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, I'm going to end our call. Okay. And everybody, look for Kristi at kristirose.net.
Yep, come ask me questions there anytime. I'm open.
And she's also on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all the social networking places.
Yep.
And you've got to watch for her star to rise.
Please do.
Yes.
Help push it.
Yes. Thank you for listening to this edition of Writer Groupie. For booking information, show notes, and more, visit kimsmithauthor.com.